how gorgeous is this? We've been really lucky to sail in some of the most beautiful places in the world, but I think the west coast of Scotland is definitely up there amongst them.
We have sailed over 50,000 miles on our 37-foot sailboat Florence, seeking out stunning tropical locations around the world. Now we are looking for something different, sailing north to explore the spectacular scenery and wildlife in colder waters. We are Matt and Amy, and this is Sailing Around Britain.
The remote and isolated anchorages of the Outer Hebrides west coast have some of the most spectacular anchorages in Britain. Yet only a few yachts make their way out here each year. This is because they are far away from where most yachts are based, and sailing here involves dealing with weather and waves coming straight in from the North Atlantic Ocean. The challenges of sailing here are bigger, but so are the rewards.
We've been hiding from bad weather for the last couple of days, but now have a brief period of calm. So we are sailing out to explore a little known anchorage which we have been told is the best in the Outer Hebrides.
Just when I thought that the last anchorage couldn't be any more beautiful, we've come around here to Scarp Island, which is just off the west coast of Harris. And how gorgeous is this? We've been really lucky to sail in some of the most beautiful places in the world, but I think the west coast of Scotland is definitely up there amongst them. The weather definitely isn't perfect here, and we've had to wait out a lot of wet and windy days for the few days of sunshine, but when the sun shines here, man, it is spectacular.
We could have made an even more impressive picture with Florence if we'd brought her closer into the beach, because it's a beautiful, clean, sandy bottom. You can see the turquoise colour of the water. But the reason we've anchored a little bit further out is this channel that's between the islands lets some of the Atlantic swell through, especially at high tide. So by being a little bit tucked around the corner there, we're hoping for a little bit more protection from the swell. And we've also got some really strong winds coming tomorrow, so hoping to get a little bit more protection there for that as well. So we've climbed up to the peak of the island here on Scarp. Florence is somewhere way over there, you can't see her anymore. It was a real scramble to get up here. But now we're here, we've got this amazing view back to the main island of Lewis and Harris. There's a shallow sand spit that comes out, shallow sand bar, sorry, that comes out from the main island here that does link to Scarp. But it's always submerged, but we would need high tide to get Florence over that. But because it's so shallow there, the sun is just reflecting off the clear sand bottom and making this amazing turquoise colour. And then a little bit further over in the corner, there's another couple of white sand beaches, which we were just discussing might be a really nice place to try and take Florence, with a freshwater lock, it looks like, just the other side of the beach, which might be a good place for a freshwater swim. And then there's 3 sea locks going up here that we could also take Florence up. So there's lots of options to explore here.
It's amazing how far we can see from here, but I think I can see 3 buildings in total. There's a beautiful little cottage down by one of the locks over by the beach, and there's a couple of houses near Hushinish Bay, which I think is where the road comes around to. But the island of Scarp actually used to be inhabited. It's not anymore, but at the peak of the population here in the 1800s, I read there were over 200 people living on the island, which is really crazy to think about, because where we've been walking over it today, where it's not rock, it's bog and it's peat, which is really acidic. So the soil must be very poor. I hate to think how difficult it must have been living here and farming this land.
After 2 nights in that beautiful anchorage, we sailed east towards Loch Resort, the southern of those 3 sea locks that we saw from the top of the hill. But it wasn't to go and explore. The Coast Guard were issuing gale warnings over the VHF radio, so we were looking for somewhere sheltered to hide from the Scottish weather once more.
So this is the other side of cruising in Scotland that we haven't really recorded much of. Normally we go out and explore on the sunny days and take the cameras with us then, but the reality of it is you get, if you're lucky, 2 really nice days, maybe 3 in a row, where you can go out and explore and be in those more remote anchorages that are a little bit more exposed, and then the weather turns and you need to go and find somewhere to go and hide from it for a little while until it improves again. You can go and explore again. So we are now actually up Loch Resort that we saw from the top of the hill. We went for that walk on Scarp, but we're not here really to explore it. we are just here to take shelter from the weather. It is absolutely howling from the south. Even in here we've got, it's not too bad in here, it's only gusting up to 28, 29 knots. But out there in the more exposed anchorages it would have been really uncomfortable. And to be honest, last night we didn't even sleep very well in here because it was absolutely howling, and somehow the swell got in all the way up the lock. We're about 5 miles up the lock and the swell somehow got in last night, and we were bouncing around even in this sheltered anchorage. It's calmed down nicely now, thankfully, although the wind is still pretty strong. So we're going to be waiting here for probably a couple of nights until the weather improves. And whilst we're doing this in a place like this, this is where we do all the editing and make the videos. So it's not too bad. Forces us to get some work done, I guess, instead of going out exploring, because it's really beautiful here when the sun is out, but when the sun is not out, oh, it's bleak. After 2 days at anchor, the strong winds eased and we were able to head out from our sheltered anchorage. However, there was still a leftover swell to deal with.
The problem we have is that the forecast is showing that this is only a short reprieve before the next band of strong winds arrive to batter the Scottish coast. With that in mind, we needed to make some decisions about our plans to sail out to St Kilda.
Believe it or not, this is actually August in the UK, which is supposed to be the summer holidays, the beautiful sunny summer in the UK. And in fact, on the south coast, they are currently experiencing a heat wave. But up here in the north of Scotland, it clearly doesn't apply because we've just got grey and rain. And unfortunately, the forecast for the next week up here is mostly gusting over 40 knots, which means it's not really the right conditions to sail out to St Kilda because the anchorage there is not very protected, and the direction it's going to be coming from at times is going to be blowing straight into that anchorage. So unfortunately we've had to make the decision that we're going to not sail out to St Kilda from here. Hopefully we'll get an opportunity from further down the chain to then sail out in better weather. But for now, with the forecast that we've got coming, we decided to sail back down through the Sound of Harris and then try and find somewhere to shelter from this bad weather for the next week. Okay, ready about?
Ready?
Nicely done. Once back into the sheltered waters behind the Outer Hebrides, we turned downwind and the sun came out, making it seem like an entirely different day. We headed to North Harbour on the small island of Scalpay.
We're disappointed we didn't get the right weather to sail out to St Kilda from the west coast of Harris. It would have been about 47 miles from where we were, but the wind was blowing directly from St Kilda, so it would have been a dead beat, and it was blowing really strongly. It would have been possible for us to get there, but it would have been really uncomfortable pounding into the waves. And because of the strong winds, there was no guarantee that when we got there, we would even have been able to get ashore.
We're not giving up on St Kilda though. We are hoping that the weather is going to improve a little bit later in the season and that we'll get another opportunity to head there from further down the Outer Hebrides island chain later in the season. But the trouble is that there are so many places to explore here, and amazing places, that if we spend a lot of time waiting to visit just one of them, we end up missing out on a huge number of others. So for now, we're planning to sail across the Minch and head to the island of Skye and exchange the white sand beaches that we have out here in the Outer Hebrides for sea locks, mountains and castles.
Next time we sail to the Isle of Skye, we get caught out by some serious weather.
For extra updates in between these bi-weekly videos, and to find out what we're up to in real time, head over to Patreon and join the crew. Of course, don't forget to subscribe to make sure that you don't miss the next episode here on YouTube.
Continuing our voyage on Florence would not be possible without the support of our patrons. Thank you to all of you, and especially to our star patrons.